Tonight, we explore a simple question. How do we find peace when life keeps changing? We cannot stop the change. No one ever has. So instead, we can learn to make peace with it and to rest inside it. This is the heart of what the Buddha taught, and it is something we can begin to feel tonight. Before we begin, feel free to share what time it is and where you're listening from. Everything in life changes. The Buddha taught that everything is always in motion, and that our suffering begins the moment we demand that something stands still. Tonight, instead of fighting that current, we learn to rest within it. So settle in and let your shoulders drop. Let the weight of the day fall away behind you. Thank you for joining us here at Midnight Monk. Let us begin. The Buddha taught many things in his long life, but there was one truth he returned to again and again. Everything changes. Nothing in this world stays the same. He called this truth impermanence, and he placed it at the very center of his teaching. He said that when we truly understand it, we begin to find peace. He often pointed to small, simple things to show what he meant. A drop of dew resting on a leaf in the early morning. It shines for a moment, and then the sun rises, and it is gone. Our own lives, he said, are not so different. We are here for a short while, always moving, always changing, like dew in the morning light. We can see this same truth in something as ordinary as the longest day of the year. The sun climbs high. The light feels as though it will last forever. And yet, on that very day, something has already begun to turn. From that night onward, the days begin to grow shorter. The light has reached its peak, and in reaching it, it has begun the slow journey back toward the dark. This is how all things move. Nothing waits at the top. The moment a thing reaches its fullest, it begins to change into the next thing. The ripe fruit begins to soften. The high tide begins to draw back to the sea. The longest day begins, that very evening, to grow shorter again. We spend much of our lives wishing this were not so. We reach a moment we love, and everything in us wants it to stay. We want the good years to last. We want the people we love to remain just as they are. We want our bodies to keep doing all that they have always done. And when things begin to change, as they always must, it can feel like a loss. But the trouble is not that things change. Things have always changed. The trouble lies in our wish that they would stop. That wish is what causes us to suffer. The Buddha did not teach this to make us sad. He taught it to set us free. When we stop expecting things to stay the same, we stop arguing with how life truly is. And in that moment, a deep kind of peace can begin. And something else happens when we take this truth to heart. Each ordinary moment becomes a little more precious. The warm cup of tea in the morning, the familiar face across the table, the sound of rain on the roof, the soft light at the end of the day. Because we know these things will not last forever, we begin, at last, to truly notice them. We stop rushing past our own lives. We start to be here for them. Let us explore a story about an old monk who lived high on a green mountain and the 4 young students who came to study with him. The monk had noticed that his students judged things too quickly. They would praise something one moment and dismiss it the next, certain of their opinions before they had truly looked. So he gave them a lesson they would carry for the rest of their lives. There was an old fruit tree that grew all alone on a distant ridge, half a day's walk from the monastery. The monk decided to send each student to look at that tree, one at a time, across the 4 seasons of a single year. In the deep of winter, he called the first student to him, a serious young man, and said, "Walk to the old tree on the far ridge. Look at it closely. Then come back and tell me what you have seen." The young man set out through the snow. When he returned that evening, cold and tired, the monk asked him, "What did you see?" "I saw a dead tree," the young man said. Its branches were bare and black. It was bent and twisted by the wind. There was no life left in it at all. He was certain there was nothing more to say about it. The monk simply nodded and said nothing. When spring arrived, he sent the second student, a bright young woman. She came back with color in her cheeks, having hurried much of the journey home, and said, "Master, the first student was mistaken. That tree is not dead. It is covered all over in small green buds. It is full of life. It is only just beginning." Again the monk nodded. In the heat of summer, he sent the third student, a cheerful young man. He returned full of wonder. "I have never seen anything so lovely," he said. "The tree is covered in white blossoms. The bees move through it all day long. The whole hillside smells sweet." And in the autumn, the monk sent the fourth student, a thoughtful young woman. When she returned, her hands full of fruit she had gathered to share, she said, "Its branches hang low with ripe fruit. The tree is heavy and golden and full. It gives its fruit freely to anyone who passes beneath it." When all 4 had returned, they began to argue. "The tree is dead," said the first. "It was the loveliest thing on the whole mountain," said the third. "You must have climbed the wrong hill." Their voices rose, and not one of them would give way. Each had seen the tree with his own eyes and could not understand how the others had seen something so different. The monk gathered them around the fire. "You are all right," he said. "And you are all wrong. Each of you saw the very same tree, but each of you saw it in only one season." Then he turned to the first student, the one who had called the tree dead, and he spoke to him kindly. "You saw the tree in the depth of winter," the monk said, "and you believed you were looking at something finished, something with no life left. But the bare tree in winter is not dead. It is resting. Sleeping inside it is every leaf it has ever grown and every piece of fruit it has ever given away. Deep down in its roots, in the cold and the dark, it is gathering its strength for what comes next. Its rest is a part of its life, every bit as much as its blossom. Without this season of rest, there could be no spring. You cannot know a tree by a single season, and you cannot know a person or a whole life by a single season either." The first student was silent for a long moment. Then he asked, "Master, which season is the best one?" The monk smiled. "That is like asking which is better, the morning or the evening," he said. "Each one has its own beauty. The spring has its promise. The summer has its fullness. The autumn has its harvest. And the winter has its deep rest, its stillness, and all the seasons that came before it, held safely inside. A life is not made beautiful by one season alone. It is made beautiful by all of them together, from the first to the last." The 4 students sat with this in silence, and from that day on, they were slower to judge and quicker to understand. The monk was speaking of a tree. He was also speaking of us. A human life moves through its own seasons, just as that tree did, and just as the year does. There is the spring of a life, when we are young, when the body is quick, and the years seem to stretch out without end. There is the summer, full and bright and busy, crowded with work and family and 1,000 cares. There is the autumn, when things begin to ripen and to fall, when the light grows softer and we begin to look back over the road we have walked. And there is the winter of a life, slower, calmer, a time when much has already been set down. Think of how much has already changed in your own life. The home that was once full of noise may be silent now. The body that once did everything you asked of it now asks you to slow down. Some of these changes were welcome, many were not, but each of them came in its own time, whether we asked for it or not. At each of these turnings, something in us resists. We fight against the change, and it wears us down. We hold our breath without knowing it. We tighten the shoulders and the jaw. Some part of us stays braced all day long, leaning against the door of the present, trying to keep the next moment from arriving. And yet the next moment arrives anyway. It always does. Our resistance changes nothing at all. It only tires us. When we begin to see this clearly, the body can soften on its own. We can stop pushing against the door. We can let the next moment come, as it was always going to come, and meet it, rather than fight it. We are taught to fear the later seasons of a life. We are taught to see them as a slow decline, a falling away from the good years that came before. But as the old monk understood, the seasons of a tree are not a decline. The bare tree in the cold is not a broken version of the tree in bloom. Each season is simply the tree being fully and completely itself. This is what the Buddha meant when he spoke of impermanence. It is a gentle truth. Everything has its season, and so do we. So it is with the later years of a life. When the body grows slower, when the days feel shorter than they once did, when more has been set down than picked up, this is not a falling away from the good years. This is the tree in winter. It holds its whole long life within it. Every spring it ever knew, every full and golden summer, every harvest it gave away to others, all of it is still there, gathered deep inside. And there is a kind of peace in this season that the busy summer of a life rarely knows. The peace of having less to prove. The peace of no longer needing to chase, or to win, or to become someone else. And the deep relief of being allowed, at last, to simply be. Much of what we once held so tightly has loosened on its own. And in that loosening there is room. There is room to notice the light on a wall, to feel the breath, to love the people near us without the old worries pulling us away. A peaceful morning, a warm drink held in both hands, the voice of someone dear, a patch of sunlight resting on the floor. There is an old woman who sits outside her door each afternoon, watching the light slowly change. She is not waiting for anything. She is not trying to be anywhere else. She has lived through every kind of season, and now she simply sits at ease and lets the day turn as it will. There is a fullness in her peace that no busy afternoon could ever hold. The Buddha said it in the plainest of words. Everything that arises will one day pass away. And he taught that when we see this clearly, we begin to loosen our grip, and the heart grows calm. The Zen masters pointed to this same truth. There is an old Zen saying, sitting quietly, doing nothing, spring comes, and the grass grows by itself. The turning of things asks nothing of us. Spring arrives on its own. The grass grows on its own. and a life can be trusted to unfold in the same way. There is also a rare gift that the winter of a life can give. The young are busy chasing and becoming, and they have little time to be still. But a person who has lived through many seasons can offer something rare. A steadiness, a patience, a way of seeing the whole of things at once. Think of the bare tree in winter, standing firm through the cold. Its open branches become a resting place for the birds. In the same way, a person who has made peace with change becomes a kind of shelter for those around them, a calm place in a noisy world. The people around us are moving through their own seasons too. The ones we love are not the same as they once were, and they were never meant to be. A friendship has its springs and its bare winters. A long marriage moves through seasons that no one ever warns us about. Even the people who are hard to be near are somewhere in a difficult season of their own, carrying burdens we cannot see. The sharp word from a friend may be the sound of their own hard winter. When we remember this, we hold one another more tenderly, and we forgive a little more easily. And nothing we have truly loved is ever fully lost. Like the bare tree that still holds every leaf it ever grew, a life in its winter holds every season it has lived. The faces we have known, the long mornings, the work of our hands, the ones who have gone on before us, none of it has truly vanished. It has been gathered in, and it lives on, safe, within us. Let us pause here for a little while. Notice how you are feeling, and when you are ready, we will continue on together. Over the course of a life, so much of what once filled our days begins to fall away. Roles change and end. The work we poured ourselves into is finished. The people and places that once surrounded us shift, and some are lost to us. And at some point, when enough has fallen away, a person may stop and ask, "Who am I, really, beneath all the things I have been?" This is one of the deeper aches of growing older. So much of who we believed ourselves to be turns out to have been built from things that do not last. The titles we carried, the strength we counted on, the roles we played for everyone around us. When these begin to slip from our hands, it can feel as though we ourselves are slipping away along with them. The Buddha would softly disagree. Beneath everything that comes and goes in a life, he taught, there is something that does not come and go. He spoke of the true nature of the mind as radiant, a light that the troubles of the world may cover over for a time, yet can never put out. There is an old saying, carried down from a faraway land, that points to the same truth. Be humble, it goes, for you are made of mud. And be noble, for you are made of stars. We are both of these at once, plain and humble, like the earth beneath our feet, and also carrying within us a light far greater than we know. There is a story the Buddhist teachers have told for a very long time about a man who carried a great treasure and never once knew that it was his. A traveler set out on a long journey to visit an old friend he had not seen in many years. The friend had grown wealthy in that time and welcomed the traveler warmly into his home. They shared a fine meal and talked late into the night about all the years that had passed between them. The traveler, weary from the long road and warmed by the good food and the better company, soon drifted into a deep and easy sleep. While he slept, a messenger came knocking at the door. The wealthy friend was being called away at once, on urgent business that could not wait. and he would be gone long before morning. He had no wish to wake his tired guest. Yet he longed to help him, for he had noticed how worn the traveler's clothes had become and could see that life had not been easy for him. So, working with great care so as not to wake him, the friend took a single jewel of enormous worth more than most men earn in a lifetime, and sewed it deep into the lining of the sleeping man's robe. He will find it there one day, the friend thought, and from then on, he will never want for anything again. Then he slipped away into the night. In the morning, the traveler woke to find his friend already gone. Seeing no reason to stay, he gathered his few belongings and went on his way, with no idea at all of what he now carried with him. The years that followed were hard ones. He worked long and had little to show for it. He moved from one town to the next, often tired, often footsore, often carrying the heavy belief that life had simply dealt him a poor hand. And through all of those years, the jewel stayed hidden in the hem of his robe, resting close against him every single day. Not once did he know that it was there. A long time later, by pure chance, the two friends met again upon a road. The wealthy man stopped in his tracks, astonished. For there before him stood his old companion, thinner than ever, his clothes more ragged than the day they had parted. "My old friend," he said, "how can this be? Why have you lived in such hardship all this time?" The traveler shook his head slowly. "I have done the best I could," he said. "Life has simply been hard for me. That is how it has been." "But you have been a wealthy man this entire time," said the friend, his voice filling with sorrow. "On the night you slept beneath my roof, I sewed a precious jewel into the lining of your robe so that you would never know want again. Do you mean to say you never found it?" The traveler stared at him, hardly able to understand. Then, with trembling hands, he searched along the worn hem of his robe. And there, exactly where it had rested all along, he felt it. A small, hard shape beneath the cloth. The jewel. It had traveled with him through every difficult mile and every long and lonely year. He had been carrying a fortune the whole time, and had lived the life of a poor man for one reason only. He had not known what he held. Each of us is very much like that traveler. We carry something precious within, and most of us pass through our whole lives without ever knowing it is there. We feel that something is missing. In some hidden place inside, we feel poor, as though we are not quite enough as we are, as though the good thing is always elsewhere, always in someone else's hands. And all the while, the treasure rests nearer to us than our own breath. This treasure is our true nature. The Buddha called it the radiant mind, the part of us that is clear and awake and well, underneath all the passing thoughts and feelings. The Zen masters had their own way of pointing to it. They would turn a student inward and ask him to show them his original face, the face he wore before the world ever gave him a name, before he became all the things he had been told that he was. It does not arrive and leave like a passing mood. It is not something we build or earn or lose. It is simply what we are, beneath everything else. The worries and fears of a life may drift across it, sometimes heavy and dark, sometimes light and few, but they never reach the light itself, and the light is never truly lost. It is shining in you even now, in this very moment, as you rest and listen, and it has never once left. Here is where this becomes a great comfort, especially in the later seasons of a life. While everything on the outside is changing, this deeper nature does not change at all. The passing years cannot reach it. So when a person grows old and fears that they are losing themselves, the truth is far kinder. They are not losing themselves. They are only setting down the outer layers, the borrowed things that were never truly who they were. What remains is the realest part of them, and it has been there from the very beginning. Consider all the things that life, in time, asks us to set down. The roles that once defined us, the work that filled our years, the people and places we have had to leave behind. When so much is laid down, it can seem there will be nothing left to us at all. But this teaching turns that fear around. What falls away was only ever the outer clothing. The one who wore it remains. And often it is only when the outer things grow still that we can finally feel the deeper nature underneath, like a deep spring that has been there all along, flowing on beneath the surface, and felt only once the clamor of the day dies down. You may have known a person like this, someone who, even in great old age, when much had been worn away by the years, still carried an unmistakable light, a presence that was wholly and simply who they were. Time had taken a great deal, and yet it had not touched that. That presence is the jewel. It does not grow old. It is something like waking from a dream. While we are dreaming, we may believe we are poor, or lost, or in danger, and the fear feels entirely real. Then we open our eyes, and we see at once that the one who was dreaming was never truly any of those things. The very name Buddha means the one who woke up. To remember our true nature is to wake, in just this manner, from the long dream that we are small and lacking and not enough. And yet the old saying speaks of mud as much as it speaks of stars, and the mud is not to be despised. To remember only the stars can make a person proud, or turn them away from the plain and ordinary business of being alive. But we are made of the earth as well. We grow tired. We make mistakes. The body ages and asks for our patience and our care. To honor the mud is to meet all of this with tenderness instead of shame, and to remember that we are no greater and no smaller than any other soul walking the same road. Another old tale tells of a learned man who set out in search of a great secret. This man had studied for many years and was admired across the land for everything he knew. Yet for all his learning, his heart was restless, and peace was the one thing he could never seem to find. Then he heard of an old hermit who lived alone, high in the mountains, a man said to have found something rare and lasting. Certain that the hermit must be guarding some great and hidden teaching, the learned man climbed for many days to reach him. When he finally arrived, he found the old hermit tending a small garden outside his hut. "I have come a very long way," the learned man said, still catching his breath, "to learn your secret. Tell me, what is the great truth you have found up here?" The hermit looked up at him and smiled. "In the morning," he said, "I tend my garden. I bake a little bread, and I eat it without hurry. When evening comes, I sit and watch the light fade behind the hills. Then I sleep, and in the morning, I begin again. That is all." The learned man waited for more, but no more came. "But that is nothing," he said at last, unable to hide his disappointment. "I traveled so far. I can do all of those same things at home. Where is the wisdom in any of it?" "When you tend your garden," the hermit asked, Are you truly there with the garden? Or is your mind always somewhere else, reaching for the next thing, for something greater? The learned man opened his mouth to answer and found that he could not. For wherever his hands had been, his mind had always been far away. I once searched as you are searching now, the hermit said. I looked in every book and in every distant place for something greater than my own small life. Then one day, I grew tired of the searching and I simply stopped. I gave my whole heart to the thing in front of me, the seed, the bread, the fading light. And I found that a life met this fully is already full. There was never anything greater to find. The Zen masters caught this same truth in an old saying about the life of awakening. Before enlightenment, they said, chop wood and carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood and carry water. The light does not lift us up out of our ordinary days. It shines through them. It is found in the cooking of a meal, the sweeping of a floor, the warming of cold hands by a fire, the holding of someone we love. We do not have to become something grand and rare. We need only to be, fully and humbly, what we already are. Why then do we so easily forget a treasure that rests this close to us? Perhaps it is because we spend our days looking outward, searching the wide world for the very thing we have been holding all along. We hunt for it in success, in the approval of others, in always gaining a little more. We tell ourselves that if we could only reach one more goal, or smooth away one more flaw in ourselves, then surely we would feel whole at last. The traveler in the story walked past 1,000 crowded markets, and not once did it occur to him to look inside his own coat. This treasure can never be found by chasing after it. It is found instead by growing still and letting the long search come to rest. When the restlessness settles, the light that was always within begins to show through on its own. There is nothing to create and nothing to deserve. There is only the laying down of the old belief that we are lacking, so that we may remember what has been here the whole time. So, on an unhurried evening such as this one, there is nothing to reach for and nothing to fix. A person can simply set down the tiring thought that they are not enough and rest in the sense that something whole, something unbroken, something the years can never wear away, is already here. Not far off, not in some other life. Here, beneath it all. That is the jewel, showing itself at last. Let us rest here together now, with nothing at all to reach for. When you feel ready, we will continue on. Within each of us is something steady and whole, but our days are seldom ruled by it. They are ruled instead by our feelings, which rise and fall without warning, lifting us up in 1 hour and pulling us low in the next. A kind word arrives, and we are glad. A small worry appears from nowhere, and the gladness is gone. We can pass a great part of our lives this way, at the mercy of whatever mood happens to be moving through us, blown back and forth like a leaf in a gusting wind. The Buddha pointed to something different. He taught that we are not doomed to be swept away by our feelings. We can learn instead to meet them, to watch them with open eyes and an open heart, rather than be carried off inside them. The forest masters had a lovely name for the part of us that is able to do this watching. They called it the one who knows. It is always present, always near, and it is far steadier than the changing weather of the heart. There is a story from long ago about the keeper of an ancient city gate and a young man who came to help him keep it. The old gatekeeper had sat at his post for more years than the young man had been alive. From the first light of morning until the dark of evening, the whole world passed through the gate before him. Merchants came through laughing, their carts heavy with goods. Weary travelers trudged in, grey with the dust of the long road. Some passed through in tears, carrying sorrows that no one else could see. Some came through red in the face and shouting, full of anger at something that had happened far beyond the walls. Beggars came, and wealthy men came, and small children came running ahead of their parents. The entire stream of life flowed through that gate, hour after hour, day after day, and the old man greeted all of it from his place beside the stones. The young man watched this endless procession, and before long, he found himself worn ragged by it. When a joyful wedding party swept through, his heart leapt up and danced along with them. When a grieving family passed by in tears, he felt himself sink down into their sorrow. When an angry traveler shouted, his own chest grew tight and hot, and the feeling stayed with him long after the man had gone. By the end of each day, he was exhausted, pulled this way and that by every single person who came near the gate. And yet, through all of it, the old gatekeeper sat with an easy heart, as untroubled at dusk as he had been at dawn. At last the young man could hold his question no longer. "Sir," he said, "how do you do it? All day long, joy and grief and anger pass before you, one after another after another. They wear me down to nothing. By the time evening comes, I am wrung dry as an old cloth. Yet none of it seems to shake you at all. What is your secret?" The old man smiled. "It is no secret," he said. "When I was young, I sat where you are sitting now, and I was just as you are. I tried to climb aboard every traveler who came through this gate. I laughed with the joyful ones, I wept with the grieving ones, and I burned with the angry ones. And it very nearly broke me. Then, one day, a simple thing became clear. I am not the travelers. I am the one who watches them pass." The young man frowned. "But they are right here in front of you," he said. "Yes," said the gatekeeper, "and in a moment, each of them will be gone, on through the gate and away down the road, and others will arrive to take their place. They do not stay. But I remain. My place is here, at the gate. I greet each one who comes. I wish them well, and then I let them carry on their way. I do not have to climb into the cart of every passing stranger and be carried off down the road." He looked out at the long road beyond the wall, and his face was calm. The travelers change from morning until night. The one who watches them does not change at all. The young man said nothing for a long while, turning the old man's words over in his heart. But from that day on, something in him began to change. He still felt everything that passed, the joy and the sorrow and all the rest. He still smiled with the happy travelers and softened toward the grieving ones. Yet slowly, he stopped being carried off with them. He was learning, at last, how to stay at his post, kindly and steadily, and to let the whole wide world go by. Our feelings are very much like those travelers at the gate. Joy arrives, stays a little while, and moves along. Sorrow comes, lingers for a time, and in the end it too passes. Worry, delight, irritation, peace, restlessness, ease, They all come walking through us, one after another, hour by hour and day by day. And if we climb aboard each one, if we become the joy whenever joy appears, and become the sorrow whenever sorrow appears, then we are pulled in 100 directions all day long, until we are worn thin, exactly as the young man was at first. But there is another possibility, the one the old gatekeeper had found. We can learn to be the one who watches the feelings come and go, instead of becoming the feelings themselves. This watcher is the one who knows. It is the part of you that is aware of sadness, and yet is not itself sad. The part that notices anger the moment it arrives, without becoming angry. It greets each feeling as it comes, lets it stay its hour, and lets it move on when its time is done. This is not coldness, and it is not turning away from life. The gatekeeper did not bar the gate, or harden his heart, or refuse to feel anything at all. He greeted every traveler kindly, and wished each of them well on their way. In the very same manner, the one who knows is not hard, or distant, or unfeeling. It can hold great warmth and great tenderness. It feels sorrow fully when sorrow comes. It simply does not lose itself, does not forget what it is, in the middle of every passing storm. It can ache and still remain steady beneath the ache. You may have already tasted this, if only for a moment. Perhaps a wave of irritation once rose up in you, and right in the midst of it, some calmer part of you noticed it and said, almost without words, "Ah, here is irritation." In that small moment, you were no longer only the irritation. You were also the one who saw it. That noticing, that clear seeing, is the one who knows. It was there the whole time, behind the feeling, watching with steady eyes. The Buddha spoke often of the winds that blow through every human life. There is praise and there is blame. There is gain and there is loss. There are the times when things go well and the world smiles upon us, and the times when things go badly and the world seems to turn its back. He taught that these winds blow back and forth through all our days, and that no one, however fortunate, escapes them. We are praised in the morning and found wanting by the afternoon. We gain something we longed for, and in time, we lose something we loved. A friend praises our work, and we feel 10 feet tall. A careless remark from someone else, and we are cast down for the rest of the day. So much of our peace, without our ever quite choosing it, ends up resting in the hands of whatever happens to come next. To be tossed about by each of these winds, lifted high by the good ones and flattened by the bad, is to know no rest at all. But the one who knows is not blown about by them. It feels each wind, fully and clearly, and still it is not swept off its feet. It remains, steady at the gate, while the winds come and go. There is a further kindness in this teaching. The Buddha noticed that when something painful befalls us, there is the pain itself, which often we cannot avoid, and then there is a second pain that we add on top of it ourselves, through all our resisting, our worrying, our wishing that things were other than they are. The first is simply part of being alive. The second is the suffering we lay upon our own shoulders. The one who knows feels the first pain honestly and fully, and then, little by little, learns to set down the second. It does not fight against what has already come. And in that not fighting, a great weight falls away. So there is no need to chase after the pleasant feelings and beg them to stay, and no need to wage war on the difficult ones and drive them from the door. Both of these are exhausting, and neither one ever truly works. We can let the whole procession come and go, just as the gatekeeper let the travelers come and go. The bright moods are welcome. The hard ones are welcome too. Not one of them is asked to stay forever, and not one of them is the whole of who we are. There is a deep freedom waiting in this. The feelings never stop coming to the gate, at any time of life. There is the ache of a body that asks for care. There is grief for those who have gone before us. There is worry about the days that lie ahead and about the people we love. These visitors keep arriving, all our lives long, and we cannot turn them away, nor should we wish to. But we do not have to be ruled by them. We can learn to meet each one, to let it be truly felt, and then to let it pass on, while we ourselves stay at our post, steady and whole. And there is a real gift hidden in a long life here. A person who has lived through many years has already watched a great many feelings come and go. They have seen joys arrive and fade, and sorrows arrive and slowly soften, and fears that once seemed enormous shrink down to almost nothing with the passing of time. All of this long watching can ripen into a kind of wisdom. Having seen so much weather pass through already, an older heart can come to trust that this present storm, too, will move along in its own good time. And so it can rest a little more easily, as the one who simply watches it go. The Zen masters often compared the one who knows to a mirror. A mirror reflects whatever stands before it, a smiling face or a weeping one, a bright day or a grey one, and yet it holds on to none of it. When the face moves away, the mirror is clear once more, keeping nothing, marked by nothing that passed before it. Our own deepest awareness is like that mirror. It reflects each joy and each sorrow that comes before it, and still it remains clear and unstained and ready for whatever comes next. We do not have to strain to reach this part of ourselves or struggle against our feelings to find it. We need only remember, every now and then, in the middle of a strong feeling, that we are the one who is aware of it. When sorrow comes, we can notice there is sorrow here and feel ourselves as the still and open space in which it is appearing. When worry comes, we can sense the one who knows the worry, the one that simply watches it arrive. In that small act of remembering, we step back out of the middle of the storm and onto steady ground. This can be a comfort in the wakeful hours of the night as well, when the mind grows busy and old worries begin to circle round and round. We do not have to chase each thought, or solve it, or argue with it there in the dark. We can let the thoughts be travelers passing through, and rest instead as the one who watches them drift by. Often, when we stop wrestling with the restless mind and simply watch it with kind and patient eyes, it begins to settle on its own, like a stirred-up pool that grows clear again once it is left undisturbed. And the more we make our home in the one who knows, the more peace settles over our days. The weather of the heart still comes and goes. Bright mornings and dark afternoons still pass overhead, as they always will. But we are no longer only the weather. We are also the wide and open sky through which all of it moves, the sky that no storm has ever harmed, and that remains, beneath everything that passes, deeply at peace. Let us pause for a moment now. Whatever is here, simply let it be here. When you are ready, we will go on together. It is one thing to know that we can rest as the awareness behind our feelings. It is another to actually find our way back there, when the mind runs off so easily into its worries and its plans and its endless stories. So how do we come home, again and again, to that steady place. One of the oldest doorways is also the nearest one. We carry it with us everywhere we go. It is the body. So much of our life is lived inside the head. We replay what is already over and rehearse what has not yet come. We worry, we plan, we compare, we remember. And all the while, almost without our noticing, the body goes on living somewhere else entirely. The body is never in yesterday and never in tomorrow. It is only ever here, in this breath, in this moment, waiting patiently for us to arrive. The Buddha understood this. When he taught the path to peace, he did not begin with lofty ideas. He began with the body. He guided his students to feel the body as they sat, to feel the breath as it moved in and out, to settle into the plain fact of being here. The body, he saw, is a doorway that leads us out of the restless mind and back into the present, into the awareness that simply knows. There is a story about the Buddha himself, from the years before his awakening, when he was still a young seeker searching for the end of suffering. In those days, he believed that the path to freedom was to conquer the body, to rise above it, to treat it as an obstacle standing between himself and the truth. So he denied it nearly everything. He ate less and less, until a few grains of rice were a whole day's meal. He sat through burning days and cold nights. He pushed himself harder than all the other seekers around him, certain that if he could only master the body and its wants, his mind would break free into the truth. But it did not happen. His body grew thin and weak, until he could hardly walk without trembling, and his old strength left him entirely. And still, peace did not come. The freedom he was searching for seemed further away than it had ever been. He had very nearly worn his life away, and had gained nothing at all for it. One day, weary beyond words, he sat down by a river to rest. And there, a memory rose up in him from his childhood. He remembered sitting beneath a tree on a warm afternoon, many years before, his body at ease, his breathing slow, his mind naturally calm and content, wanting for nothing. In that simple, peaceful moment as a boy, he had been nearer to the freedom he now sought than in all his long years of punishing himself. And he understood something that would change everything. Peace was not to be found by making war on the body. The body was not his enemy. It was his companion and his home, and it too was a part of the path. Just then a young woman passed along the riverbank and saw how frail he had become. With great kindness, she offered him a simple bowl of milk and rice. Once, he would have refused such comfort as a weakness. This time, he accepted it. He ate, and slowly the warmth and strength began to return to him. The other seekers who had fasted at his side were dismayed, certain that he had abandoned the search. But he had not abandoned anything. He had found something truer. He had found what he would come to call the middle way, the path that neither drowns the body in pleasure nor punishes it with pain, but cares for it with kindness and walks gently between the two. And it was along this path, in a body rested and whole, that he sat down beneath another tree and, at last, awakened. Most of us treat our own bodies in one of two ways. Either we ignore the body almost entirely, dragging it along behind us while we live up in our thoughts, or we treat it as a problem to be managed, something to be fixed and controlled and pushed and often criticized. We are unhappy with how it looks. We are frustrated by what it can no longer do. We are impatient with its need for rest. Rarely do we simply listen to it and meet it as the old friend it is. The Buddha's discovery points to another way. The body is not a burden we are condemned to carry, and it is not an enemy to be overcome. It is a faithful companion that has been with us our whole life long, breathing for us through every night, carrying us from place to place, asking only for a little care in return. To honor the body, to feed it and rest it and move it with kindness is not a distraction from the peaceful life. It is part of how a peaceful life is actually lived. It can be a tender thing to consider how much the body has done for us, without our ever once asking. The heart has been beating since before we were born, through every day and every night of our lives, never pausing to rest. The lungs have drawn breath after breath, faithfully, while we slept and while we forgot all about them. The legs have carried us across the years to everywhere we have ever stood. We so rarely stop to thank the body for any of this. And yet a little gratitude, a little tenderness toward this companion that asks so little and gives so much, can soften how we live inside our own skin. There is a deeper gift the body offers us, and it is this. The body is always here, in the present moment, even while the mind goes wandering off into 1,000 other places. Right now, as you rest and listen, the breath is moving in and out entirely on its own. The chest is rising and falling. There may be warmth in some places, and a little tension in others, and the weight of the body settling into whatever holds it. All of this is happening here, now, in the only moment that is ever real. And so the body becomes a doorway home. Whenever we find ourselves lost in worry about the future or pulled back into the past, we can return our attention to the body, to the breath, to the simple feeling of being here. And in that very moment, we step out of the storytelling mind and back into awareness itself. This is one reason the Buddha taught his students to rest their attention on the breath. The breath is always with us. It is always happening now. It is a steady thread that can lead us back, over and over, to the one who knows. There is something deeply moving about the breath when you stop to consider it. It was your very first act when you arrived in this world, that first breath drawn in. And it has been with you through every single moment since, through all your joys and all your sorrows, faithfully coming and going, asking nothing of you in return. It is with you now. You never had to remember it or arrange it. It simply keeps you, breath after breath, as it always has. To turn toward the breath, then, is to turn toward something that has never once left your side. Long ago, there lived a young woman whose mind would give her no rest. She was clever and hard-working, but her thoughts ran on without ceasing from the moment she woke until late into the night, forever worrying over what was behind her and fretting over what might lie ahead. She had heard of an old woman who lived at the edge of the village, who was said to carry a deep stillness within her no matter what came to pass. So the young woman went to her and asked, "How do I calm this restless mind of mine? It gives me no peace at all." The old woman did not answer with words. Instead, she took a wide bowl and filled it to the very brim with water, so full that the surface trembled and the slightest movement threatened to spill it over the edge. She placed it with great care into the young woman's 2 hands. "Carry this across the garden," she said, "to the old tree by the far wall, and set it down there without spilling a single drop. Then come back and tell me what you noticed." The young woman took the bowl and began to walk, slowly, so very slowly. All of her attention went down into her hands, into the trembling surface of the water, into the careful placing of one foot and then the next. She felt the weight of the bowl, the coolness of the water, the soft press of the earth beneath her. She breathed evenly, half afraid that even a single deep breath might tip the balance. Step by patient step, she crossed the whole length of the garden and set the bowl down beside the old tree without losing a drop. When she returned, the old woman asked her, "While you were carrying the bowl, what became of your restless thoughts? Where had all your worries gone?" The young woman went very still, surprised by the question. "They were gone," she said slowly. "I was not thinking of yesterday, nor of tomorrow. There was only the water, and my 2 hands, and the next small step." The old woman smiled. "That is the whole of the secret," she said. "You did not have to chase your thoughts away, or wrestle them into silence. You had only to bring your whole self here, into your body, into this single moment. The restless mind grows still on its own the moment we come home to where we already are." It is a simple lesson and a very old one. It is much the same truth the Buddha pointed to when he placed the body first upon the path to peace, as the nearest doorway into the present moment. The body is also a teacher of impermanence, if only we will listen to it. An itch arises and fades. A warmth spreads and then cools. A small ache shifts and is gone. Every breath and every sensation appears, lingers a while, and passes, and there is nothing we need do about most of it. As we sit and watch these little waves come and go, we begin to feel in our very flesh what the Buddha taught with words, that everything which comes will also go, and that there is a peace available to us which does not depend on holding any of it in place. And the body holds more than we tend to realize. Our feelings live inside it. Fear tightens the belly. Sorrow settles heavy in the chest. Anger burns in the jaw and the hands. Very often the body knows what we are feeling before the mind has found any words for it. To pause and feel what is happening in the body is one of the kindest and wisest things we can do, because the body will tell us the truth of how we really are, if only we are willing to listen. And when a difficult feeling does arrive, the body offers us a simple and honest place to meet it. Rather than arguing with the feeling in our thoughts, or trying to think our way out of it, we can simply notice where it has settled in the body. We can feel the tightness, or the heaviness, or the ache, and instead of pushing it away, we can soften around it, and breathe, and allow it to be there. Feelings met in this manner, with a little space and a little kindness, tend to move through us far more easily than the feelings we struggle against. The body knows how to let things pass when we stop standing in its way. There is one more piece of the body's wisdom, and it is a happy one. The body is not only where we feel our troubles, it is also where we feel the simple joys of being alive, and these are almost always found right here in the present, never in our thoughts about it. The warmth of sunlight on the skin, the taste of food when we are truly paying attention to it, the deep relief of lying down to rest after a long day, the comfort of a warm bath, a cool breeze, the touch of a hand we love. These small pleasures are offered to us all day long, and we miss most of them only because our minds are somewhere else. To come back into the body is to become able to receive them once more. It is to taste our own life while we are still living it, instead of hurrying past it on our way to the next thing. The Zen teachers knew this well. They placed great care on the body, on how one sits, how one breathes, how one walks, treating these plainest of acts as the very place where awakening is found. There is nothing abstract about it. Peace is not only a state of the mind. It is also the loosening of a clenched shoulder, the softening of a held breath, the body settling at last into stillness. So there is nothing you need to do with any of this, except perhaps to notice, every now and then through your day, that you have a body at all. To feel your own breath for a moment or two. To let your shoulders come down. To return from the noise of your thinking into the simple fact of being here, alive, breathing, at home in yourself. The body has been waiting for you all along, patient and faithful, ready to bring you home the moment you are ready to come back. Let us simply be here now, with nothing to do and nowhere to go. When you are ready, we will go on together. Just as the body is always changing, so too is the heart. Feelings move through us all day long and all our lives long. Joy and sorrow, love and fear, tenderness, anger, longing, and peace. Each one rises, stays for a while, and gives way to the next. The heart has its seasons, much as the year does, and they are always turning, one into another. Most of us carry a secret wish that the heart would hold only its bright seasons. We want the joy, the love, the ease, and we would gladly do without the sorrow, the fear, and the grief. So we spend a great deal of effort trying to cling to the good feelings and push the difficult ones away. Yet anyone who has tried this for long knows that it does not work, and that it often leaves us more troubled than we were before. The Buddha pointed to something kinder and wiser. He taught us to meet the whole of the heart, every season of it, with a warm and friendly awareness. There is an old story about a young weaver who longed to create something truly beautiful. She had learned her craft in the great workshop of an old master, a place where tapestries were woven so fine that they hung in the halls of temples and palaces, admired by all who passed before them. The young weaver kept a basket of threads in every color imaginable. There were bright threads, gold and crimson and deep sky blue, threads that seemed to hold light caught within them. And there were dark threads as well, browns and grays and blacks, threads she found dull and ugly, and rather wished she did not have to keep at all. So when the day came for her to weave her very first tapestry of her own, she made a decision. She would use only the beautiful threads, only the gold, the crimson, the blue. The dark threads could stay where they belonged, at the bottom of the basket, and her tapestry would shine brighter than anything the old workshop had ever produced. She worked at her loom for many days, with great care and greater hope. But as the tapestry slowly grew, something puzzling began to happen. It did not look beautiful at all. It looked flat and pale and oddly lifeless, as if nothing in it were quite real. The bright colors, with nothing behind them and nothing to set them off, seemed to run together and lose all their brilliance. The young weaver could not understand it. She had used only the loveliest threads she owned, and yet her picture had no depth to it, no shape, no life. At last, tired and discouraged, she carried her work to the old master. "I used only the most beautiful threads I had," she said. "Why does it look so lifeless?" The old master studied the tapestry for a long, silent moment. Then he reached into her basket and drew out a handful of the dark threads she had set aside. "It is missing these," he said simply. "But those are the ugly ones," the young weaver protested. "I did not want to spoil my work with them." The old master only smiled and sat down at the loom. Slowly, he began to weave the dark threads in among the bright ones. He laid them in as the shadows beneath the flowers, as the deep places between the distant hills, as the darkness of the night behind a scattering of bright stars. And as his hands moved, something remarkable happened before her eyes. The whole picture came alive. The gold seemed to blaze now that there was shadow set beside it. The figures lifted from the cloth and seemed almost to breathe. What had been flat and pale only a moment before was suddenly deep and rich and glowing with light. The young weaver stared at it, scarcely able to believe it was the same cloth she had despaired over only an hour before. "You see," the old master said, "it is the dark threads that give a picture its depth. Without them, the bright threads have no meaning at all. A tapestry woven of only bright colors is not a picture. It is merely a blur. It is the two together, the bright and the dark, that make something whole and true and beautiful." The young weaver gazed at the cloth for a long time, saying nothing. She understood now that the threads she had thought were ugly were the very ones that had been missing all along. And from that day forward, she never again left a single thread lying forgotten at the bottom of her basket. Our hearts are not so different from that tapestry. We long to feel only the bright things, the joy and the love and the contentment, and we treat the darker feelings, the sorrow, the fear, the grief, the loneliness, as ugly threads to be cast aside. We feel that something has gone wrong with us when we are sad. We are ashamed of our fear. We try to hide our grief, even from ourselves. We are forever reaching into the basket for only the brightest colors. The early Zen teachers had a name for this restless habit of the heart. They taught that the path to peace is not difficult in itself, but that we make it so by endlessly picking and choosing, grasping after the feelings we like and pushing away the ones we do not. And yet a human life, like a true tapestry, is woven of both. The sorrowful feelings are not a flaw in us, and they are not a sign that we have somehow failed at being happy. They are simply part of having a heart that feels. In truth, they are often what gives a life its depth and its tenderness. The people we find most beautiful to be near are rarely those who have known only the bright threads. They are the ones who have known sorrow too, and have let it soften them rather than harden them. Their warmth has some shadow in it, and that is part of what makes it real. Watch a small child for a while, and you will see a heart that has not yet learned to do this sorting. A child feels everything fully and then lets it go. Tears pour down one moment, and a few minutes later there is laughter, the storm entirely forgotten. Somewhere in the years of growing up, most of us learned to clamp down on the feelings we had been told were not allowed, to swallow our tears, to hide our fear, to keep a brave face. Often this was a way of protecting ourselves, and it served a purpose. But it came at a cost, for a feeling that is not allowed to move does not simply disappear. It settles somewhere inside us, and it waits. And when we hide our hardest feelings away, we often end up feeling terribly alone inside them. We look around and see everyone else seeming to manage just fine, and we privately conclude that we must be the only one who struggles. But this is a kind of illusion. Behind their calm faces, others are weathering their own sorrows and their own fears, exactly as we are. When one person is brave enough to be honest about what they truly feel, it gives everyone around them silent permission to do the same, and the loneliness begins to lift. We are far more alike in our tender hearts than we usually allow one another to see. All of this changes how we might hold our own difficult feelings. When sorrow comes, we do not have to declare war on it, or scramble to fix it, or scold ourselves for feeling it at all. We can let it be here, as a natural season of the heart, and meet it instead with kindness. The Buddha taught a practice of loving kindness, of turning a warm and friendly heart toward all living beings. And he made a point that many people overlook. That circle of kindness must include ourselves. We are so often far harder on ourselves than we would ever be on another person. We meet our own sadness with impatience, our own fear with criticism, our own mistakes with a harshness we would never show to anyone we cared for. Think of how you would be with a dear friend who came to you in tears after a painful day or over some mistake they regretted. You would not scold them or tell them to hurry up and feel better. You would sit with them, offer them warmth and a kind word, and let them know they were not alone. Yet we rarely show our own selves even a fraction of that same care. To meet ourselves as we would meet that friend, especially in our hardest hours, is among the most healing things a person can do. A story is told of a man who could not make peace with his own shadow. Everywhere he went, it followed him. When he walked, it walked beside him. When he ran, it ran. He grew so troubled by it and so weary of its constant company that one day he resolved to escape it once and for all. So he began to run. He ran across the open fields and down the long roads, as fast as his legs would carry him. But however fast he went, the shadow stayed with him, matching him stride for stride. Telling himself he had simply not run fast enough, he ran faster still until his legs ached and his breath grew short, and at last he could go no further and sank down to rest beneath a broad and spreading tree. An old woman was sitting in the shade of that tree, and she had watched the whole strange chase. "Friend," she asked him, "why do you run yourself so ragged?" "It is my shadow," he said, still gasping for breath. "I cannot escape it, however hard I try." "But look," she said, "here, in the shade of this tree, where has your shadow gone now?" The man looked down and was astonished. Sitting still in the cool shade, there was no shadow to be seen at all. It had not been driven off by his running. It had simply dissolved the moment he stopped and rested and let himself be where he was. "You needed only to stop," the old woman said. "Your shadow could never be outrun. It could only be outlasted by coming at last to rest." So it is with the feelings we most wish to escape. The harder we run from our sadness or our fear, the more faithfully it keeps pace with us, and the more worn out we become in the running. But feelings, like shadows, lose their grip the moment we stop fleeing and let ourselves be still with them. We do not have to outrun them. We have only to come to rest. All of this rests on something we have been returning to since the beginning. These feelings, however strong they may be, are not the whole of who we are. They are seasons moving through us, and we are the awareness in which they come and go. When we know this, deep down, we can afford to open our hearts to every feeling, even the painful ones, because we understand that no single feeling, however dark, is the final truth of us. It will pass, as all seasons pass, and we will still be here. Consider a feeling such as loneliness, which can grow especially loud in the still hours of the evening. The usual response is to flee from it, to fill the silence, to distract ourselves, or to scold ourselves for feeling it at all. But loneliness, met instead with a little tenderness, often has something to tell us. It reminds us how much we long for connection, how deeply we are made for love. We can rest a hand over the heart and acknowledge the ache and treat ourselves in that moment with the same care we would offer a lonely friend. The feeling may not vanish all at once, but it eases because it is no longer being fought. It has simply, at last, been met. There is a further gift hidden in all of this, one that reaches beyond ourselves. It is almost always the people who have known their own sorrow who can truly sit with us in ours. Someone who has never let themselves feel pain has little to offer a sufferer beyond the wish that they would soon feel better. But one who has walked through their own dark seasons can sit beside another in the dark without flinching and without rushing them to leave it. Our own griefs, once they have softened us, become the very thing that lets us comfort one another. This is where so much of real compassion is born. There may be no season of the heart more tender than grief. When we lose someone or something we have loved, the grief we feel is not a problem to be solved, nor something to be hurried along. It is love, simply continuing on, with nowhere left to go. To grieve is to have loved, and the two can never truly be separated. So grief, too, can be met with kindness rather than resistance. We can let it come in its waves and let it soften slowly in its own time, and trust that the heart, given patience and tenderness, knows how to carry what it has been given to carry. And even in the depths of it, something in us stays steady underneath, the same awareness that has watched every season of the heart arrive and pass. We can grieve with our whole heart and still be held by that steadiness. So perhaps the kindest thing any of us can do is to stop sorting our feelings into the good and the bad, the welcome and the unwelcome. We can let the heart have its full range, its bright threads and its dark ones alike, and meet all of it, as best we can, with a warm and friendly awareness. A heart held in this way is not a smaller heart. It is a larger one, deep enough to hold the whole of a life, and tender enough to call all of it, even the sorrow, a part of being fully and beautifully alive. Let us take a few moments of stillness now. You need not feel anything in particular, nor change a single thing. When you are ready, we will go on. From the moment we wake in the morning until we fall asleep at night, and often deep into the night as well, there is a voice inside us that almost never falls silent. It comments on everything. It judges, it worries, it plans, it remembers, it explains. It tells us what is happening and what it all means and who people really are and what is surely about to go wrong. This is the thinking mind, and more than almost anything else, it shapes whether we pass our days in peace or in turmoil. We have spent time already with the body and with the seasons of the heart. Now we come to the mind and to something the Buddha saw with great clarity, that most of our suffering is made not by the world itself, but by our own thinking about the world. The very first words of the Dhammapada, one of the oldest and most beloved of the Buddhist scriptures, speak of exactly this. They tell us that the mind goes before all things, that everything we are arises out of our thoughts, and that with our thoughts we shape the world we live in. The Buddha understood that what happens to us is often far less important than the story we tell ourselves about what happens. And so, just as we have learned that we can rest as the awareness behind our changing feelings, we can learn to rest as the awareness behind our thoughts, noticing the stories as they arise, without being carried off by every one. Long ago, there was a man who could not find his axe. He was a woodcutter, and his axe was among the most precious tools he owned. So when he reached for it one morning and found it gone, he was deeply troubled. He searched his whole house and could not find it anywhere. And slowly, a suspicion began to take shape in his mind. His young neighbor, a boy from the next house along, had been playing near his woodpile only the day before. Surely it was the boy who had taken it. Once this thought had taken hold of him, the woodcutter began to watch the boy closely. And the more he watched, the more certain he became. See how the boy walks, he thought, with that guilty, hurried step. Listen to how he speaks, in that nervous, shifty tone. Notice how he will not quite meet my eyes. Everything about the boy now seemed to announce his guilt. The woodcutter was quite sure of it. That child had the very look of a thief about him. And so he no longer greeted the boy warmly, as he once had. He kept a cold distance and watched him with hard, narrowed eyes until the easy friendship that had long stood between their two houses began to grow cold. Then, a few days later, the woodcutter climbed up into the hills to gather firewood. And there, lying in the long grass, where he himself had set it down and forgotten it, was his axe. He had carried it up the hillside days before, laid it in the grass, and walked home without it. The boy had never so much as touched it. The next morning, the woodcutter passed his young neighbor once again. And how strange it was. The boy no longer looked anything like a thief. His step seemed easy and light. His voice was open and friendly. His eyes were clear and honest. Nothing whatsoever about the boy had changed. The only thing that had changed was the story in the woodcutter's own mind. And yet that story had been strong enough to turn an innocent child before his very eyes into a criminal, and then back again into a boy. This is how the storytelling mind works in all of us, every single day. Something happens, often something small or unclear, and almost before we know it, the mind has spun a whole story around it, and we believe that story completely. A friend does not answer our message, and the mind says, "She must be upset with me." Someone glances at us and turns away, and the mind says, "They think badly of me." A small ache appears in the body, and the mind says, "Something is seriously wrong." We rarely pause to notice that these are only stories, only guesses, dressed up as certainties. We take them for the plain truth, and then we suffer over them as though they had already happened. The trouble is that a thought feels so very convincing. When the mind announces, "This will end in disaster," it does not feel like a passing guess. It feels like a fact, a warning we had better heed at once. But a thought is not a fact. A thought is only a thought, a small event passing through the mind, here in one moment and gone the next. Every one of us has had thousands of fearful thoughts about things that never came to pass, and thousands of certain judgments that turned out to be entirely wrong. The mind is a wonderful servant, but it is not always a reliable narrator. You can catch this same power at work in your own life, if you watch for it. The very same event can carry two completely different stories, depending only on the mood we happen to be in. On an easy day, a friend's silence means simply that she is busy. On a harder day, that identical silence means she no longer cares for us at all. Nothing about the silence itself has changed. Only the storyteller has changed. And whichever story we believe becomes, for a time, the whole world we live in. Think of waiting for someone you love who is late, far later than they promised. For many of us, the mind sets to work at once, spinning out accidents and misfortunes, until the heart is pounding and the worst has been lived through a dozen times over. Then the door opens, and there they are, perfectly safe, held up by nothing more than a slow road home. All of that suffering was real, but the disaster that caused it never existed anywhere except inside the story. It is humbling, too, to notice how often we move through our days inside stories of just this kind, as certain as the woodcutter was that we know exactly who someone is, and what they meant, and why they did what they did. We meet a stranger's sharp word and decide they are unkind, never knowing they may have just lived through the hardest day of their life. We build whole portraits of people out of a few small moments and a good deal of guessing, and then treat them as though our portrait was simply the truth. A little humility about our own stories can soften how we meet one another and leave a little room for all that we cannot know. Here is another old story, one the Buddhist teachers have told for a very long time, about a traveler making his way home along a path as evening fell. The light was growing dim, and as he came around a bend in the road, he saw, lying across the path just ahead of him, a snake, coiled, dark, and still, lying right where he would have to step. His heart leapt into his throat. He froze where he stood, not daring to move a single muscle, his whole body stiff with fear. He could feel his pulse pounding in his ears. He was certain that if he took even one step closer, the snake would surely strike. For a long while he stood there, held fast by his terror, unable to go forward and afraid to turn his back on it. Then another traveler happened to come along the path behind him. Seeing the first man frozen and pale, she stopped and asked him what was wrong. "A snake," he whispered, pointing ahead with a trembling hand. There, lying across the path. The second traveler looked carefully for a moment. Then she smiled and walked calmly forward to the very thing he so feared. "Friend," she said, "come and see for yourself. This is no snake at all. It is only an old coil of rope that someone has left lying in the road." And she lifted it up gently to show him. The man could scarcely believe it. All that terror, which had gripped his whole body and frozen him to the spot and set his heart racing, had been brought on entirely by a coil of old rope and by the story his frightened mind had told him in the failing light. So much of our fear is just like this. The mind meets something uncertain, something it cannot quite see clearly, and in the dim light of not knowing, it paints in the very worst that it can imagine. It turns a rope into a snake. It turns a late reply into a lost friendship, an odd symptom into a catastrophe, an unknown future into a long parade of disasters lying in wait. And then we stand there frozen, hearts pounding, suffering the full weight of a danger that lives only inside the story. The mind seems to find it almost impossible to leave anything simply as it is. It must name each thing, and sort it, and decide what it means. A small delay becomes a disaster in the making. A moment of silence becomes an awkwardness we must rush to fill. A neutral expression on a face becomes proof of someone's disapproval. Most of this naming happens so fast and so silently that we never notice it is happening at all. We do not feel it as a story we are telling ourselves. We feel it simply as how things are. And that is exactly why these stories hold such power over us. Every day, without knowing it, we mistake them for reality itself. The mind is especially fond of telling its stories about two places where none of us can ever actually live. The first is the future. It spins out endless tales of what might go wrong, rehearsing troubles that, most of the time, never arrive at all. Most of these imagined disasters we suffer through 100 times in the mind, and never even once in our actual life. The second place is the past. Here the mind replays old hurts and old mistakes, turning them over and over, telling us yet again the story of what we should have done differently. Neither of these places is real. There is only ever now. And yet the mind can fill this present moment so full of past and future that we miss the life in front of us almost entirely. Perhaps you know this best of all in the stillness of the night, when the busyness of the day has fallen away and the mind, left to its own devices, begins to tell its stories in the dark. A small worry from the afternoon swells, in the silence, into something vast. A long list of tomorrow's troubles unrolls itself before you. An old regret returns once more to be turned over yet again. In the dark, these stories can seem especially solid and especially true. And yet they remain only stories, the very same passing thoughts they were by daylight, no more real now than they were then. To remember this, even a little, in the middle of the night, is to begin to loosen their hold and to let the body sink, at last, toward rest. Here is the heart of the matter, and it is the same truth we keep returning to along this path. We are not our thoughts. A thought arises in the mind much as a sound arises in a still room, appearing on its own, lingering for a moment, and then fading away again. And just as we can sit in a room and simply hear the sounds without becoming them, we can rest in awareness and simply notice our thoughts, watching them arise and pass, without believing every one or being swept off our feet by it. There is a part of us that is aware of each thought as it comes and goes. That awareness is not itself a thought. It is the still space in which all the thinking happens, and it has never once been disturbed by any of it. You can sense the truth of this for yourself, even now. Notice that you are aware of your own thinking. There is something in you that knows when a thought is present and knows when it has passed. That knowing is always here, steady and untroubled, while the thoughts themselves keep coming and going, arising and dissolving on their own. It grasps at nothing, and it needs nothing. It is simply aware, and it is here, in this knowing, that we can come to rest, over and over, whenever the storytelling grows too loud. None of this means that we must silence the mind, or win some long war against our own thinking. That is neither possible nor the point. The thinking mind is a gift. It solves problems. It imagines and creates. It holds on to what matters. The peace comes not from stopping our thoughts, but from no longer believing every story they tell us. The Zen teachers had a simple instruction for this. When a thought arises, do not invite it to stay, and do not fight to push it away. Simply let it come and let it go. So when a worried thought appears, we can learn to greet it lightly. Here is a story about the future. When a harsh judgment rises up, we can simply notice it. Here is the mind, telling its old tales again. Met in this manner, a thought begins to loosen its hold on us. It becomes just a thought, passing through, and we can let it continue on its way and come back, again and again, to the simple peace of what is actually here, in this present and untroubled moment. Let the mind grow still now. There is nothing here that needs to be figured out. When you are ready, we will go on. So much of the strain we carry through our days comes down to a single, simple habit: holding on too tightly. We hold on to the things we own, to the people we love, to the shape we want our lives to take, to the good moments we wish would never end. We clench around them, afraid to let them slip away. And yet everything we are holding is changing, all the time, whether we grip it tightly or not. The Buddha pointed to this very habit as the root of so much of our suffering. He taught that it is not change itself that causes us pain, for change is simply the nature of all things. It is our grasping after what changes, our clinging to what cannot stay, that turns the natural passing of life into sorrow. The more tightly we clutch at something, the more we suffer when, as it always must, the thing we are holding moves on. There is another way to hold the things of this life. Picture the difference between a clenched fist and an open hand. The Zen teachers spoke of passing through the world leaving no trace behind, holding each thing lightly, using it fully while it is here, and then setting it down again without a struggle. It is the same freedom we have been moving toward all along this path, the freedom of one who can let life come and let life go, resting in an awareness that needs to grip nothing at all in order to be at peace. A small girl was once taken to a busy village market. It was a feast day, and the stalls were piled high with sweets and treats of every kind, more than she had ever seen in all her life. Her grandmother smiled and told her that she might choose some to carry home. The girl could scarcely believe her good fortune. She rushed from stall to stall, gathering up everything her eyes fell upon. She filled both her small hands and then her arms, hugging the whole sweet heap tightly against her chest, determined not to lose a single piece of it. But as she hurried along, a sweet tumbled from the top of the pile. As she bent to catch it, 2 more slipped from her arms. She snatched at those, and others fell, rolling away into the dust of the road. The more tightly she clutched at the whole armful, the more of it came spilling out of her grasp. Before long, the poor girl was standing in the middle of the road, close to tears, her treats scattered all around her feet, and not a single one of them yet tasted. Her grandmother knelt down beside her. "Little one," she said kindly, "you are trying to hold far too much all at once. Choose just a few, the ones you love the best, and carry only those. Then your hands will be easy, and you can enjoy every last bite." The girl wiped her eyes and chose 3 of her favorite sweets and held them lightly in her 2 open hands. And to her surprise, with her arms no longer straining and her fists no longer clenched, she found that she could enjoy them completely, one delicious piece at a time, the whole long walk home. We may smile at the little girl, and yet how often we do the very same thing. We reach for more than we could ever hold, and clutch what we have so tightly that it brings us little joy, and then we cannot understand why we feel so burdened and so trapped. We grip a possession so tightly that we spend our days afraid of losing it. We hold on to a particular outcome, certain that things must go exactly as we have planned, and we suffer each time life refuses to obey. We clutch at a happy moment, trying to force it to stay, and in the clutching we crush the very enjoyment we were reaching for. We even grasp at the people we love, holding on so anxiously, out of fear of losing them, that we squeeze the ease and the joy right out of the bond. It is a curious thing about the objects we own, that the more we have, the more we can find ourselves owned by them in return. What we possess, we must guard and tend and worry over and dread to lose. A person who holds a great deal in a tightly clenched fist can be far more burdened than one who carries little and holds it loosely. It is not the having of things that weighs us down. It is the gripping. This can happen even in our happiest moments. We arrive somewhere we have long wished to be, on a journey perhaps, or among people we love, and almost at once, a small voice begins to fret that it will all be over far too soon. We find ourselves only half present, already mourning the end of a thing that has scarcely begun, trying somehow to grip the moment and force it to last. And in all that gripping, we miss the moment itself, which was only ever asking to be lived. The joy was never in the holding on. It was always in simply being there, with open hands, for as long as it lasted. A great deal of our grasping is really a wish for control, a longing for life to unfold precisely as we have decided that it should. We carry a fixed picture of how the day must go, how others ought to behave, how our plans must turn out, and we grip that picture tightly. Then life, as life tends to do, goes its own way instead, and we are left tense and frustrated, at odds with the very moment we are standing in. To open the hand here is to loosen our hold on how things must be, and to let life be as it actually is. This is not to stop acting, or caring, or hoping. It is to stop demanding. And in that loosening, a knot of tension we may have carried for years can begin, gently, to come undone. The trouble with a clenched fist is that it can do so little. A closed hand cannot receive anything new. It cannot offer anything, and it cannot hold another hand. It can only grip what it already has, tighter and tighter, until the holding itself begins to ache. An open hand is another thing entirely. An open hand can still hold whatever rests in it, as fully and as tenderly as before. But it can also give and receive and release what it must when the time comes. To hold the things of our life with an open hand is not to care for them less. It is, if anything, to be free enough to enjoy them far more, because we are no longer ruled by the dread of their leaving. An old teacher was much loved by his students for the deep peace he seemed to carry with him wherever he went. Among his few belongings was a simple clay cup, old and beautifully made, which he used each day for his tea. He was clearly fond of it. He would hold it carefully in both hands and drink from it slowly and set it down again with a kind of tender affection. One of his younger students, watching this day after day, grew puzzled. The teacher was forever telling them not to cling to things, not to set their hearts on what could be lost. And yet here he was, plainly cherishing this fragile little cup. At last the student gathered the courage to ask him about it. "Master," he said, "you teach us not to grow attached to things that pass away. But you love that cup so dearly. Would your heart not break if one day it should shatter?" The old teacher smiled and held the cup up to the morning light. "This cup," he said, "is already broken." The student did not understand. "You see," the teacher went on, "this cup is made of clay, and clay is fragile, and all fragile things, given time, return to pieces. A day will surely come when it slips from my hand, or is knocked from its shelf, and breaks. I know this. And because I know it, the cup is, in a sense, already broken, even now, while it sits here whole in my hands. So I do not wait in fear for the day it shatters. I simply enjoy it, completely, every single morning. While it is whole, I love it as something whole. And on the day it breaks, I will say, of course, and let it go without complaint. Knowing that it must one day break is the very thing that lets me treasure it now, without the smallest shadow of fear. The student looked at the old cup for a long while, and slowly began to understand. It was not in spite of its fragility that the teacher loved the cup so well. It was because of it. This is the secret of the open hand. It is not that we love the things of our life any less. It is that we hold them in the light of a truth we have met before along this path, the truth that all things pass. Everything we cherish, every person we love, every season of our days is in a sense already changing, already on its way to becoming something else. When we forget this, we cling, and our clinging is shadowed always by the fear of loss. But when we remember it, our holding loosens into something far freer. We begin to treasure what is here, precisely because we understand that it will not always be. This is true above all of the people we love. It can seem, at first, that to love someone with an open hand, without clutching, must mean to love them less. But the very opposite is so. When we grasp at a person out of fear, we do not truly see them at all. We see only our need for them and our terror of losing them. We hold them so tightly that there is no room left for them simply to be themselves. To love with an open hand is to love them freely, as they are, for however long we are given to walk beside them. Grateful for their presence, rather than anxious about their leaving. That kind of love has air in it, and ease, and room to breathe. When we are not clutching at the people we love, something lovely becomes possible. We can simply be with them, here and now, delighting in their company as it is, rather than spending our hours with them secretly braced against some future day of parting. The open hand brings us back into the present, which is the only place where love is ever actually lived. Underneath nearly all of our clutching, if we look closely, we find fear, the nagging fear that without this thing, or this person, or this outcome, we will somehow not be all right. The open hand grows from something steadier than fear. It grows from a deepening trust that we will meet whatever comes, that we carry within us the same awareness that has seen us through every season so far, and that this awareness can never be taken from us by any loss. Resting in that, we no longer need to clutch. We can afford to hold the things of our life lightly, because we are no longer holding on for our very survival. And here we come once more to the still center of everything we have been exploring together. Beneath all our holding on and our letting go, there is an awareness in us that needs to grip nothing whatsoever in order to be whole. It does not grow richer when we gain, nor poorer when we lose. It simply rests, open and at ease, watching the things of this life arrive and depart. When we come to know ourselves as that, even a little, we can begin to meet the whole of our lives with open hands, holding everything, clutching at nothing, and free. Anyone who has ever finally released something they had clutched for a long time knows the strange relief that comes after. A grudge nursed for years. A plan held onto long after it had stopped serving us. A hope squeezed tight well past its season. There can be grief in the releasing, yes, but there is also a great lightening, as though we had been carrying a heavy stone in a closed fist all that time and had simply forgotten we were allowed to set it down. The hand, opened at last, can rest. And so, at last, can we. None of this asks us to give away what we have, or to stop loving, or to pretend that we do not care. It asks only that we begin to notice, in small, everyday moments, when our hand has closed into a fist. When we feel that familiar tightening, the worry over losing something, the desperate need for things to turn out a certain way, we might pause and breathe and let the fingers open just a little. We can keep what is ours to keep and enjoy what is ours to enjoy, and yet hold all of it like a small bird that has come to rest in an open palm, with care and with wonder, and with a hand open enough that the bird is always free to fly. Let us be at ease now, with open hands, holding on to nothing at all. When you are ready, we will continue on. There are few gifts we can give another person greater than the gift of our full attention. And there are few things any of us longs for more deeply than to be truly heard, to be listened to completely, without judgment and without interruption, by someone who is wholly present with us, is one of the most healing experiences a human being can have. And yet it is rare, far rarer than it ought to be. We have spent this time together, exploring the body, the heart, the restless thinking mind, and the freedom of holding life a little more lightly. All of it comes to life in one simple act, the act of truly listening. The Buddha himself was, above all, a deep listener. It is said that on the night of his awakening, as he sat beneath the Bodhi tree, he did not force his way toward enlightenment. He simply grew very still and listened, opening himself completely to the life moving all around him and within him. And out of that deep listening, understanding was born. To listen in this way is not really a technique. It is a way of being present. It asks us to set down, just for a while, the busy commentary of our own mind, the stories and the judgments and the waiting for our turn to speak, and to rest in the same open awareness we have been returning to all along, so that another person can come fully into our presence and be received. Once there was a young man who could find no peace anywhere he went. His mind was loud and restless, full of worries and wants, and the world around him seemed only a blur of noise that he hurried through without ever really touching. An old monk he met one day on the road, seeing his distress, gave him a curious piece of advice. "Go into the forest," he said, "and find a place to sit, and do nothing at all but listen. Stay until you have truly heard it." The young man did not understand, but he was weary enough to try. He walked into the forest, found a fallen log beneath the trees, and sat. At first, he heard almost nothing, only the clamor of his own thoughts, still churning over all his troubles. The forest seemed silent and empty, and he grew impatient. But he had promised to stay, and so he stayed. After a long while, his thoughts began to settle, as dust settles through still air and comes to rest. And as they did, something remarkable happened. The forest, which had seemed so silent, began to fill with sound. He heard the wind moving through the high leaves, each tree with a voice of its own. He heard birds calling far off, and then near, a dozen kinds of birdsong he had never noticed in all his life. He heard the small rustle of some creature in the undergrowth, the hum of insects, the creak of branches, the trickle of water somewhere close by. Layer upon layer of it, a whole living world that had been speaking all along, while he had been far too full of his own noise to hear a single note of it. He sat there until the light grew golden and long, and when at last he rose to walk home, he felt as though he had woken from a kind of sleep. He had lived his whole life, he realized, surrounded by a beauty he had never once stopped to truly hear. Most of us move through our days exactly as that young man once did, so full of our own inner noise that we never truly hear what is around us. And this is nowhere more true than in how we listen to one another. We believe we are listening, but very often we are not. While the other person speaks, our mind is already busy. We are planning what we will say next. We are judging, comparing, agreeing, or disagreeing in our heads. We are waiting, a little impatiently, for our turn to come. We hear the words well enough, but we miss the person. We all know, from the other side, how this feels. Think of a time you tried to share something that mattered to you, and the person across from you kept glancing away, or cut in before you had finished, or answered in a distracted way that made it plain their mind was somewhere else entirely. Something in us closes a little when that happens. We feel unseen and a touch lonely, and we slowly learn not to share too much. And think, by contrast, of that rarer person who set everything else aside and listened to you as if nothing in the world mattered more in that moment. How safe that felt. How easy it became to open. That is the difference our presence makes to another human being, and it is an enormous one. When we do still our own noise and truly listen, we begin to hear what we could never hear before. We notice the feeling that lives underneath the words. We notice the small catch in a voice, the thing a person is trying to say but cannot quite find words for, the meaning that rests in a pause or a silence. There is a delicacy in human speech, a kind of fluttering, subtle life in it, like butterflies among the leaves, that only the still and patient listener ever sees. We cannot catch it while our own mind is loud. It shows itself only to our full and undivided presence. The Zen teachers understood the great power of silence. They knew that the deepest things are often communicated not in words at all, but in the quality of a shared and wordless presence. Two people sitting together in true attention, saying nothing, can be closer than two people talking all the night long. And they understood, too, what stands between us and such presence, the same restless, storytelling mind we have spoken of, forever narrating and judging, and the same grasping that makes us want to be right, or to seem impressive, or to turn the conversation back toward ourselves. When we set these down, even for a few moments, a door opens, and the other person can simply walk through it. True listening, then, is less about doing something and more about ceasing to do. We do not need clever techniques or the perfect thing to say. We need only to grow still enough and present enough that there is room in us to receive another person. So often, when someone shares a trouble with us, we rush to fix it, to offer advice, to tell them about a time the same thing happened to us. We mean well, but frequently, what the person needs is not our solution at all. It is simply to be heard and to feel, even for a few minutes, that they are not alone with what they carry. Part of the trouble is simply how quickly we live. True listening cannot be hurried. It unfolds at the pace of presence, which is the slow and patient pace of the heart, rather than the racing pace of a busy day. To listen well, we have to be willing, for a little while, to have nowhere else we need to be. Strangely, it is often the people closest to us, the ones we love the most, whom we listen to the least. We have heard them so many times that we believe we already know what they will say, and so we only half attend, finishing their sentences in our minds and missing the small new thing they are trying to tell us today. To listen freshly to someone we have known for years, as if we were meeting their heart for the very first time, can transform a bond that had grown a little tired. People change, always, season by season. The person beside us this evening is not quite the person they were a year ago. Real listening lets us keep meeting them as they truly are, rather than as we have long since decided they must be. In a certain village, there once lived an old woman whom everyone would visit when their hearts grew heavy. She was not known for clever advice. In fact, she said very little at all. And yet, one by one, the people of the village would come and sit with her and pour out their troubles and leave again, some time later, feeling lighter and clearer than when they had arrived, as though a great tangle inside them had somehow come loose. A young woman of the village, burdened by a worry she could not solve, went at last to see her, though she could not imagine how an old woman, who gave no advice, could possibly help. She sat down and began, hesitantly, to speak, and the old woman simply listened. She did not interrupt. She did not look away, or grow restless, or reach for her own opinions. She listened with her whole being, her warm and steady attention resting on the young woman like sunlight. And now, and then, she asked a soft question, not to steer her or to judge, but only to understand more deeply. And a strange thing happened. As the young woman spoke into that deep and patient listening, her tangled worry began to untangle itself. Saying it aloud to someone who truly heard her, she began to hear it herself, clearly, for the first time. Halfway through a sentence, she suddenly understood what she needed to do. The answer had been within her all along. It had needed only the open space of another's listening in order to come forward. She thanked the old woman, who had said almost nothing, and walked home with a light heart. And she understood, now, why the whole village loved her so. The old woman gave no answers. She gave something far rarer and far more healing. She gave the simple gift of being truly heard. To be received like that, fully and without judgment, is one of the most healing things in the world. It is a kind of love, perhaps the purest kind. When we give another person our complete and undivided presence, we offer them something more valuable than any advice. We are saying, without a single word, "You matter. I am here. You are not alone." There is no gift quite like it, and it costs us nothing but our willingness to be present. This is never more true than when someone we love is in pain and we do not know what to say. We often fall silent then, or stumble over our words, afraid of saying the wrong thing, wishing we had some wisdom that might take their hurt away. But in such moments there are usually no words that will mend it, and the person does not need us to mend it. They need only our company in it. Simply to sit beside them, present and unafraid, letting them feel whatever they feel without hurrying them out of it, is a profound kindness. We do not have to fix anything at all. We have only to stay and to listen and to let them know by our steady presence that they are not alone. And this same listening can be turned gently toward ourselves. So many of us rush through our own inner life as carelessly as we rush past the world, never pausing to truly hear what our own heart is trying to tell us. To sit in stillness with ourselves, now and then, and listen inwardly, with the same patience and kindness we would offer a dear friend, is its own kind of homecoming. Our own heart too will often unknot itself and grow clear, if only we will listen to it long enough. There is a great peace too, simply in listening to the world. On a still night, lying awake, instead of filling the dark with our worries, we might listen as the young man in the forest learned to listen. The small sounds of the house settling, a breath of wind at the window, the deep silence underneath it all. To rest our attention there, on the small life of the present moment, is to be drawn out of the noise of the mind and into something wide and calm and timeless. The world is always speaking in 1,000 small voices. We need only listen, and there is a deeper listening still. Beneath the words of others, beneath even the voice of our own thoughts, there is the silence of the present moment itself, the vast and living stillness in which everything arises. To listen to that, to simply rest in the aware silence that is always here, is to come home to the very ground of our being. It is the same awareness we have met again and again along this path, the one who simply knows. And it is always, in every moment, available to us, the instant we grow still enough to listen. None of this asks us to become perfect listeners all at once. It asks only that, here and there, in an ordinary conversation, we might set down our own noise for a few moments and offer the person before us the simple grace of our full attention. To truly listen to another, to truly listen to ourselves, to truly listen to the living silence beneath it all, is to step out of our endless inner chatter and into real presence. And in that presence, we discover that we were never quite as separate or as alone as we had imagined. We are, all of us, always, speaking and listening to one another in one great and tender conversation that has been going on since the very beginning. Let us listen now, for a little while, to the silence all around and to the stillness of the night. When you are ready, we will go on. Of all the truths we have touched upon together, there is one that runs deeper than the others, and it is the most tender of them all. It is the simple truth that nothing here stays forever. Every season turns. Every moment passes. The people we love, and we ourselves, are here for a time, like guests at a beautiful gathering. We do not often let ourselves think about this. It can seem too sad or too frightening to look at directly. And yet, approached with care, this truth turns out to be not a darkness at all, but one of the kindest teachers a human heart can have. For it is the very thing that makes life precious. The Buddha pointed to this truth, the truth of impermanence, as the most fundamental of all. And he taught something that can seem surprising, that to look at it clearly, without flinching, is not a cause for despair, but a doorway to a deep and lasting peace. When we stop running from the fact that things end, and instead allow it to soften and open our hearts, something in us begins, at last, to be free. We began this whole journey, you may remember, with the turning of the seasons and the simple truth that all things change. We come now to the tenderest place that truth can reach, the ending of the things and the people that we love, and one day of our own lives as well. It is the very same teaching met at its deepest, and it is nothing we need to be afraid of. And beneath even this, as we will come to see, there waits a comfort deeper still. But let us begin, as ever, with a story. In the high mountains of Tibet, The Buddhist monks have long practiced a most beautiful and remarkable art. Over many days, and sometimes many weeks, a group of them will work together to create an intricate picture made entirely of colored sand. Bent low over a flat surface, they lay down the grains one tiny pinch at a time, through fine metal funnels, building up a vast and dazzling design of astonishing detail. Every single grain is placed with the greatest care. The finished work can take the breath away, a glowing circle of color and pattern that has cost countless patient hours to make. And then, when it is at last complete and has been admired, the monks do something that can seem almost unthinkable to those who do not understand. They take a simple brush, and they sweep the whole magnificent creation away. In a few moments, the picture that took weeks to build becomes a heap of mixed gray sand. They gather it up, carry it to a flowing river, and pour it into the moving water, returning it to the world. Why would they do such a thing? They do it on purpose, as a teaching, and as a kind of meditation. The sweeping away is not a sad ending. It is the very point. The monks pour all their love and skill into something exquisite, knowing from the very first grain that it will not last, and then they release it, freely and without grasping. In doing so, they practice, with their own hands, the deepest truth of life itself, that all things, even the most beautiful, are here for a little while, and then they pass, and that there can be a great peace, and even a serene joy, in the letting go. We may not build pictures of sand, but life is forever asking us to do the very same thing those monks practice. To love what is here, fully, and then, when its time comes, to let it go. We do this with each passing moment, with the changing stages of our lives, with all that we hold dear. The trouble is that we so easily forget. We live as though we, and everyone we love, will simply be here always. And in that forgetting, we fall half asleep to our own lives. This is why the tender remembering of impermanence is such a gift. Not to make us sad, but to wake us up. When we truly take in that our time here is not endless, the smallest things turn precious. The face of someone we love, seen across a room. An ordinary morning. The sound of rain. We stop postponing our living. We so often tell ourselves that we will slow down and savor things and say the loving word and mend the old quarrel later when there is more time. The tender truth that there may not always be a later tends to bring us, very sweetly, back to now. It is one of the few things with the power to shake us awake and remind us what actually matters. The Zen poets of old understood this more deeply than almost anyone. For centuries they wrote their most beloved verses in praise of the cherry blossom, and they treasured it not, in spite of the fact that it falls so soon, but precisely because it does. The blossom is beautiful, they saw, because it lasts only a few short days. If it bloomed forever, we would walk past it without a second glance. Its passing nature is not the enemy of its beauty. It is the very source of it. And the same, they knew, is true of everything we love and of our own brief and luminous lives. Many people come to know this in their own lives. Those who have come close to losing something they loved, or who have passed through a hard and frightening time and out the other side, will often say that the world looked completely different afterward. Colors seemed brighter. Ordinary things, a cup of tea, a friend's laughter, the light falling on a wall, became almost unbearably dear. For a while, at least, they stopped sleepwalking and truly lived. They had been brought face to face with how fragile and fleeting it all is, and far from crushing them, it had woken them to the sheer wonder of being alive at all. One evening, a small boy sat beside his grandfather on a hilltop, watching the sun go down. It was a glorious sunset, the whole sky turning gold and rose and deepening into violet. But the little boy, who had been thoughtful all day, suddenly grew sad. He had been noticing, lately, that things do not last. His favorite flowers had wilted in the garden. The long summer had ended, and now here was this lovely evening, slipping away as well. "Grandfather," he said in a small voice, "I don't like that things have to end. The flowers, and the summer, and even the day. And one day, you won't be here either. It makes me so sad." The old man was silent for a moment. He drew him close, and together they watched the last of the light. "Come," he said softly, "and let me tell you a secret about endings. Look at the sun going down now. Is it dying? No. It is only setting, as it has done every evening of your life. And what comes after it? The stars, which you could never see while the sun was shining. And after the stars, a new dawn and a new day, never quite the same as the one before. The day does not end because something has gone wrong. It ends because that is how a day is made, and the ending is part of its beauty. Tell me, would this sunset be half so lovely if it lasted forever and never changed?" The little boy thought about it. "No," he admitted. "I don't suppose I would even look at it." "Just so," said his grandfather. "It is because things do not stay that they become precious to us. And as for the people you love, love is not the same as the daylight. When someone you love is no longer here, the love does not vanish along with them. It stays inside you, and it warms you, and it becomes a part of who you are for all the rest of your days. Nothing truly loved is ever wholly lost. So you need not be afraid of endings, little one. They are woven into everything, like the evening is woven into the day, and there is nothing in them to fear." The little boy leaned against him, comforted, and watched the first star appear in the darkening sky. And he felt, for the very first time, that perhaps endings were not so frightening after all. The grandfather's secret is one the wise of every age have known. Letting go is not some terrible thing that happens only at the very end. It is the natural rhythm of our whole life. We let go of each breath so that the next one can come. We let go of each day when we lie down to sleep. We let go of childhood in order to grow, and of each season of our lives as the next one arrives. Life is one long and graceful releasing, and most of it we do without ever noticing. Sleep itself, which may already be drawing near for you now, is one of these nightly letting goes, and a most beautiful one. Each night, we lay down everything we have been carrying, all the doings and the worries of the day, and we let ourselves fall, trustingly, into the dark and the unknown. We loosen our hold on the whole world and even on our sense of who we are, and we simply let go. And far from being frightening, it is the sweetest rest we know. Each time we drift off to sleep, we are practicing, in the safest and most natural way there is, this very art of releasing and of trusting what holds us. When we learn to make these small letting goes a little more consciously, to release a worry, to loosen our grip on a moment that is already over, to say goodbye to one chapter and turn toward the next with an open heart, we are slowly learning the great art of letting go. And little by little, this softens us, so that when the larger endings come, as in time they come to us all, we are better able to meet them not with terror, but with tenderness, and even with a strange and peaceful grace. So much of our suffering, in truth, comes from a refusal to let things be over. We cling to how a moment should have gone, replaying it again and again, wishing it otherwise. We hold tight to a chapter of our life that is already closed, or to a version of it that never quite was. To let go, in these small, everyday ways, is to make our peace with what actually is. It is to let each moment be complete, exactly as it was, and then to release it and turn, with open hands, toward the one that is arriving now. This is true even of grief, the most tender of all our partings. When we lose someone dear, the sorrow we feel is not a problem to be solved or hurried through. It is simply love, with nowhere left to go for a while. And held in patience and kindness, even grief slowly finds its place within us. The ache softens, in time, into something warmer and softer still, gratitude and tenderness, and the abiding presence of a love that did not end. And here, at last, we come to the deepest comfort of all, the one that has been waiting beneath this whole journey. Through all the changes of a life, through every ending and every fresh beginning, there is something in you that does not change. The aware presence, hearing these very words, the one who knows, the silent witness behind your eyes, has been with you all along, from your earliest memory until this very night, watching the seasons of your life arrive and pass. It was there when you were a small child, and it is here now, and it has not aged by a single day. The body changes, and the story of our life changes, but the simple awareness in which all of it appears does not itself come and go. It is the still and open space in which your whole life has been unfolding, as fresh and untouched tonight as it was on the morning you were born. And when we begin to sense ourselves as that, even a little, the fear of endings starts to loosen its hold. For it is only the things that come and go that ever truly end. The awareness that holds them does not. Resting there, we find we can love what is here with our whole heart, and release it when it is time, and trust that the deepest part of us abides through all of it. This is the peace the Buddha pointed to, not a peace that depends on nothing ever changing, which could never be, but a peace that holds steady in the very midst of all the change. None of this is something we need to force or to solve tonight. We need only let the tender truth of impermanence soften us, here and there, rather than frighten us. To let it remind us, now and then, to hold our loved ones a little closer, to forgive a little sooner, to notice the ordinary beauty of a day while it is here. Endings are not our enemy. They are woven through all of life, as the evening is woven through the day, and they are part of what makes this brief and precious existence so achingly beautiful. And beneath them all, that still awareness within us rests on, untroubled, holding the whole of it in perfect peace. Let everything be still now, as the day softens into night, with nothing to hold and nothing to fear. When you are ready, we will go on. There is a particular kind of weight that many of us carry, often for years, without ever quite setting it down. It is the weight of an old hurt, something that someone did to us that we have never quite forgiven, or something we ourselves did that we have never quite forgiven in our own hearts. These old wounds, carried long enough, can slowly harden a heart and rob us of a peace that is rightfully ours. We spoke, a little while ago, of letting go, and of how life is one long releasing. And of all the things we are ever asked to release, two of the very hardest are these: our resentment toward those who have wronged us, and our blame toward ourselves for our own mistakes. To release these is the great and tender work of forgiveness. And beneath it all lies a simple truth about the human heart, that the heart, in its depths, wants to get it right. It longs to love well, to be at peace, to set things right. Forgiveness is how it finds its way home. The Buddha saw this clearly. He taught that hatred can never be ended by more hatred, that resentment held against another only feeds the fire, and that it is by love alone, in the end, that a wounded heart is healed. And like everything we have explored together, this healing begins by resting in that open, spacious awareness in which even our deepest hurts can be held, gently, until at last we are able to lay them down. There is a story of two men who had been the closest of friends since they were boys. They had grown up side by side, shared every joy and every sorrow, and lived as neighbors all their lives. But one day, over some small matter, a foolish quarrel broke out between them. Hard words were spoken, words that neither truly meant, but that neither was willing to take back. Each waited for the other to apologize first. And as they waited, days became weeks, and weeks became years. A tall hedge grew up along the line between their two houses, and they passed each other without a word. Two old friends turned into strangers. The strange thing was that, as the years went by, neither of them could any longer quite remember what the quarrel had even been about. They remembered only that they were owed an apology, and that their pride would not let them give one. Yet each, in his heart, was lonely. Each missed his old friend dearly, and thought of him often, and wished, secretly, that things could be as they once were. One evening, an old man, grown grey now and feeling the shortness of his days, stood looking at the hedge that divided him from the friend of his whole life. And he thought to himself, what a foolish thing this is, to have lost so many good years to a quarrel I cannot even recall. He is the oldest friend I have in all the world. He set down his pride, walked to his neighbor's door, and knocked. When the door opened, he simply said, "Old friend, I have missed you. I am sorry. Can we not let this go?" For a moment, the other man stood speechless. And then his eyes filled with tears, and he said, "I have been waiting and hoping for you to come for years. I am sorry too. Come in, come in." And the two old friends embraced, and the long silence between them melted away in a single evening, as though it had never been. They wept, and they laughed, and only one regret remained between them, that they had not done this so very long ago. How often we behave just as those two friends did. We hold on to a hurt and to our sense of being wronged long after we have forgotten the details, certain that to forgive would be to lose something or to admit that we were in the wrong. But forgiveness does not mean any of that. To forgive is not to say that what happened was acceptable. It is not to forget or to pretend we were not hurt. It does not even always mean that we must return to how things once were. Forgiveness is something stiller and more inward than all of that. It is simply the act of setting down the burden of our resentment and of ceasing to drink the poison of it day after day. Nor does forgiving someone mean that we must let them go on hurting us. We can forgive a person in our hearts and release our resentment of them and still choose, wisely, to keep our distance or to protect ourselves from further harm. Forgiveness softens the heart. It does not ask us to abandon our good sense. The two sit perfectly well together, an open heart and clear, kind boundaries. For that is what an unforgiven hurt truly is. It is a poison we go on drinking ourselves, in the strange hope that it will somehow harm the other person. But the one who wronged us, very often, feels nothing at all. They may have forgotten the whole affair, or moved far away, or be no longer living. We are the only ones still being hurt, still drinking the bitter draught, still tending an old fire that gives us no warmth and only burns our own hand. To forgive is to finally set down that bitterness and to let that fire go out, not for their sake, but for our own. It is a gift we give, above all, to ourselves. It can help, too, to remember that those who hurt us are almost always acting out of their own pain. No one who is truly at peace within themselves goes about wounding others. The cruel word, the thoughtless act, the betrayal, these come from people who are themselves frightened or hurting or lost, and who have, in that moment, forgotten the goodness of their own hearts. This does not excuse what they did, but it can soften our hatred into something more like sorrow, and sorrow is far easier to release. We begin to see that they, too, in their own confused fashion, were only longing to get it right, and had simply lost their way. The Zen teachers pointed to all of this with great simplicity. To carry yesterday's anger into today, they understood, is to refuse to fully live in the only moment we ever really have, which is this one. Each morning, they would say, is a chance to begin again, fresh and unburdened, setting down all that is finished and done. To forgive, seen in this light, is simply to stop dragging a dead weight through a living world, and to meet the new day, unburdened, with nothing left to carry. A woman once carried a secret sorrow in her heart for many years. Long ago, in her youth, she had done something she was deeply ashamed of. It was not a terrible thing, as such things go, but it had hurt someone she loved, and she had never been able to forgive herself for it. The memory would rise up in the stillness of the night and fill her with a hot wave of shame. She had spent years punishing herself in secret, certain that she did not deserve to be at peace. At last, weary of the burden, she went to see an old woman at the edge of the village who was said to be very wise. She told her the whole story and confessed that she could not forgive herself, however hard she tried. The old woman listened with great kindness and was silent for a time. Then she asked, "Tell me, this thing you did so long ago, are you, today, the very same person who did it?" The woman considered. "No," she said slowly. "I was young then. I did not understand what I understand now. I have changed a great deal since." "Just so," said the old woman. "The one who did that thing no longer exists. And yet here you are, all these years later, still punishing her. How long is long enough? You have carried this for half your life. Has it brought back what was lost, or healed the one who was hurt? Or has it only added one more sorrow to the world, your own? And consider this. If your heart still aches over something you did so very long ago, what does that tell you? It tells you that yours is a loving heart that wanted, even then, to do right, and grieves that it fell short. A heartless person feels no such thing. Your pain itself is the proof of your goodness. You have punished yourself long enough. It is time now to lay this down and to forgive the frightened young woman you once were. She did the very best she knew how. And so have you, every day since. something broke open very softly in the woman's heart. For the first time in all those years, she felt the great weight of it begin to lift. And she walked home that evening lighter than she had felt in longer than she could recall. Many of us are far harder on ourselves than we would ever dream of being toward another. We will forgive a friend almost anything, and yet go on punishing ourselves for years for some old failing we can scarcely undo. But we, too, are deserving of forgiveness. We, too, were doing the best we could with the understanding we had at the time. The person who made that mistake was younger and more frightened, and knew less than we know now. To forgive ourselves is not to pretend we did no wrong. It is to stop the endless punishing, to learn what there is to learn, and to let the rest, at last, dissolve. We can feel the truth of all this in our own bodies. Think of how it is when we are nursing a grievance. The mind returns to it again and again, replaying the offense, rehearsing the things we wish we had said, arguing the case over and over to an empty room. It can keep us awake at night, tighten the chest, and sour an otherwise lovely day. The other person, all the while, sleeps soundly. Resentment is a hard master, and it asks a great deal of us, in exchange for nothing at all. The moment we begin to release it, something in the body itself softens and lets go, as though it had been waiting a long while for permission to rest. And here too, the spacious awareness we have returned to again and again is our great ally. For when we rest as that calm, watching presence, we can look back upon our own past and upon those who have wronged us without being swept away by it. We can hold the whole aching story, the hurts given and the hurts received, in something far larger and kinder than the hurt itself. From that calm vantage, forgiveness is no longer even a struggle. It becomes the most natural thing in the world, as when a clenched hand, grown tired of clenching, simply opens of its own accord. And what a freedom it is when it comes. To forgive, whether another or ourselves, is to be released from a prison we did not even fully know we were in. The heart, having set down its long burden at last, grows lighter and softer and more open. The energy we spent for so long on resentment and regret is freed to be spent instead on living and on loving. This is why forgiveness lies so close to the heart of a peaceful life. It is the heart finding its way back to the love it longed for all along. And the heart's wish to get it right moves us in the other direction too. Sometimes it is we who have wronged another, and the path to peace lies in going to them humbly and saying the very words the old friend in our story said, "I am sorry." To offer a sincere apology, to make amends where we can, is among the most freeing things a person can ever do. It asks us to set down our pride, which is never easy. But on the far side of it lies a lightness and a restored connection that pride could never have given us. Forgiveness is not only for the great wounds either. It is also a daily practice in the small things. The friend who let us down, the stranger who was sharp with us, the loved one who spoke harshly when they were tired. 100 small grievances can gather in a single day, and we can choose, again and again, to let them pass through us rather than lodge inside us. A heart that forgives easily in the small things stays soft and light, and is far less likely to harden, over the years, into bitterness. None of this can be rushed or forced. Forgiveness is not a single decision but a slow softening, and it ripens in its own time. We need not pretend to a forgiveness we do not yet feel. We need only be willing to set the simple intention that we would like, one day, to be free of this burden, and then to let the heart do its patient work. Little by little, the grip loosens. And if there is someone, tonight, whom you have not forgiven, or some old fault of your own that you have carried too long, perhaps you might simply hold the wish, softly, that one day you will be able to lay it down. That willingness alone is the beginning of peace. Let us set down now, just for a while, whatever we have been carrying, and let the heart grow light and at peace. When you are ready, we will go on. We come now to the close of our journey together, and to the very last teaching that the Buddha ever gave. We have traveled a long way over these hours. We have looked at the turning of the seasons and the simple truth that all things change. We have come to rest, again and again, in that aware presence within us, the one who simply knows. We have made our peace with the body and the heart and the restless mind. We have practiced the open hand and deep listening and the letting go of all that passes and the forgiveness that sets a heavy heart free. And so we arrive, now, at a final question, the one toward which all of it has been leading all along. Having found some measure of peace within ourselves, how, then, are we to live? What are we to do with this one brief and precious life? The Buddha gave his answer in the very last days of his long life. It is the story we turn to now. The Buddha was an old man by then, having taught for many years, walking the roads of the land and sharing his wisdom with all who came to him. And there came a time, at last, when his long life drew toward its close. He had grown frail, and so, one day, he lay down to rest between two great trees, on his side, calm and clear and utterly at peace, and he let his students know that the time had come for him to pass beyond. His students were heartbroken. Among them was Ananda, who had been his devoted companion and attendant for many years, and who loved him dearly. Ananda wept and could not be consoled. How would they manage without their teacher to guide them? Who would lead them once he was gone? They felt suddenly like children about to be left all alone in the dark. The Buddha, lying there so peacefully, looked upon his grieving students with great tenderness and spoke to them tenderly. He told them not to weep. Had he not taught them all along that everything that is born must one day pass away, and that all things dear to us must change? He himself was no exception. This was not a cause for despair, but the very truth he had spent his whole life pointing them toward. And then he gave them the teaching they would carry forever after. Do not look outside yourselves for a guide, he told them. Do not depend upon me or upon any teacher to light your path. Be a lamp unto yourselves. Be your own refuge. The light you have been seeking is not somewhere far away, in me or in anyone else. It is within you, and it always has been. Make of yourself a lamp, and you will never be lost in the dark. With these words, and a heart entirely at peace, the Buddha closed his eyes and passed away as peacefully as someone slipping into a deep and welcome sleep. He left behind no riches and no successor to rule in his place. He left only his teaching and the light that he had helped each of them to find within themselves. Be a lamp unto yourself. Of all the things the Buddha might have said at the very end, this is what he chose. And it is a teaching of extraordinary kindness and extraordinary power. For what he was telling his students, and what he tells us still, is that everything we have ever been searching for, we already carry within us. All through our lives, we tend to look outside ourselves for the thing that will finally make us whole. We seek it in success, in possessions, in the approval of others, in some future moment when everything will at last be arranged just so. And all the while, the very thing we are looking for, a deep and unshakable peace, has been here within us from the very beginning. It is that aware, knowing presence we have returned to again and again along this path. The silent witness behind your eyes. The one who knows. That is the lamp. It was never lit by anything outside of you, and it can never be put out by anything outside of you. It is your own, always, and it is enough. There is a great freedom in this. To know that your peace does not depend on anything outside of you is to be set loose from a lifelong anxiety. The world can give and take away as it pleases, and the lamp within still burns. This light is steadiest, in fact, exactly when we need it most. In the hardest hours, in the long dark night, when sleep will not come and the mind is full of fear, we do not have to fix everything or find all the answers. We have only to turn, once more, toward that calm awareness that is always here, beneath the trouble, and to rest in its steady glow until the dawn. It has never once gone out in all your life, and it never will. The Zen teachers pointed to this same light in their own fashion. They insisted that we do not need to become something other than we are, or to journey anywhere at all to find it. The very awareness alive in you this moment, they taught, is itself the thing you seek, already whole and complete, needing nothing added to it. To be a lamp unto yourself is simply to recognize this, and to trust it, and to rest in the light that has been shining at the center of you all along. In a town where the nights were very dark, there once lived an old woman. Every evening at dusk, she would take up a single small lamp, its flame burning steadily, and she would walk slowly through the winding streets of the town. At each dark corner, she would stop and reach up and light the lamp that hung there, touching her one little flame to it so that it caught and began to glow. From lamp to lamp she went, all through the town, until every street that had been black and forbidding was filled with a warm and welcoming light. Travelers could find their way. Children were not afraid. And then she would walk home again, her own small flame still burning, no smaller than when she had begun. She asked nothing for this, and most people hardly noticed her at all. But one evening, a young woman stopped her and asked why she did it, night after night, year after year, with no thanks and no reward. The old woman smiled. "I have only this one small flame," she said, holding up her little lamp. "It is not much, but look at what it can do. It can light 100 lamps and 100 more after that, and never grow the least bit smaller for the giving. Its light is not lessened by being shared. It is the one thing I have to offer this world, and so, each night, I offer it. Tell me, what else is a flame for, but to give its light away?" The young woman was deeply moved by this, and the very next evening, she took up a small lamp of her own and began, at the far end of the town, to light the dark corners there. And so the light spread further still, and the nights in that town were never quite so dark again. To be a lamp unto yourself is the first half of the teaching. To be a lamp for others is the second, and the two are really one. For when we have found that steady light within, when we are no longer so frightened, or so grasping, or so lost in our own troubles, something beautiful begins to happen almost on its own. The peace starts to overflow. It spills out of us as kindness, as patience, as a warmth that others can feel simply in our presence. Having been warmed by our own inner light, we begin, naturally, to warm the world around us. Each of us has some gift to offer, some light that is ours alone to give. We need not imagine that it must be something grand. The gift may be a great talent or a great work, but far more often it is something simpler and closer to hand. It may be the raising of a child with love. It may be a kind word offered at just the right moment, or the deep listening we spoke of that lets another person feel truly heard. It may be the making of something beautiful, or the tending of a garden, or simply the steady presence of a calm and loving heart in a frightened world. Whatever it is, the offering of it is what a life is for. The lamp is not meant to be hidden away beneath a basket. It is meant to be set up high, where it can give its light to everyone in the house. And we can never know, in this life, how far our light may travel. A single act of kindness, offered and forgotten, can ripple outward through years and through lives in ways we will never see. The teacher who patiently encourages one struggling child may set in motion a goodness that touches thousands, long after the teacher is gone. The stranger who shows mercy in a hard moment may save a life without ever knowing it. The humblest, most unnoticed life, lived with love, may turn out to have been one of the great lamps of its age, lighting more than any famous name. We are not asked to measure our light or to make it large. We are asked only to let it shine and to trust that it matters more than we will ever know. And none of us, after all, lit our own lamp entirely alone. If we look back, we will find that our light was kindled again and again by others, by a parent's love, perhaps, or a teacher's faith in us, or the kindness of a friend at a moment when we had grown dark and were ready to give up. Someone, somewhere, touched their flame to ours, and we caught light. To offer our own light onward, then, is not really to give something away. It is to pass on a gift that was first given to us, and to take our place in a long and unbroken line of lamplighters, reaching back further than any of us can see, and forward, now, through us. And so we come to the end of our journey, with the Buddha's last words as our parting gift. Be a lamp unto yourself. Everything you have been seeking, the peace, the stillness, the love, is already within you, shining at the very center of your being, and it has been there all along. You need only return to it, and rest in it, and trust it. And then, when you are ready, let it shine. Offer your gift, whatever it may be. Be a warm and steady light for the people around you, and for a world that has great need of such light. You do not have to become anything other than what you already are. You have only to let what is already within you shine out. That is the whole of it. And that is a life well and beautifully lived. And if, tonight, you feel that your own light has burned low, that you are weary or lost or have little left to give, then let these be the words you carry with you into sleep. The lamp is not gone. It is only resting. It cannot be lost, because it is what you are. Tomorrow, and every day after, it will be there to be rekindled and to be shared. You are, even now, exactly as you are, a light in this world. And now, as these words draw to a close, there is nothing left to do but rest. Thank you for spending these still hours here. Whatever you were carrying as you listened, you can let it grow lighter now. Let your body sink a little deeper and your breath grow slow and easy. And let the day, with all that it held, simply dissolve. There is nowhere else you need to be, and nothing else you need to do. You can let yourself drift now, held by that same steady awareness we have returned to all along, the one who knows, which asks nothing of you, and was never anywhere but here. Whenever you need it, this stillness is always here, within you, waiting. May you rest deeply tonight, and wake softly into whatever tomorrow may bring. Sleep well, and thank you for joining us here at Midnight Monk.